It wasn't always easy, fellas, but look, you're 3-0. Carson Beck is easing into the offense. Maybe not as fast as people thought that he should, but Georgia is 1-0 in SEC play, and that's where you got to start, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about it today, and the reason why we have a job, people care. But Georgia's 3-0, where they won 20 games in a row, I think now, and
Yep.
they find a way. I said it last night. Georgia got hit in the mouth, and a lot of kind of kudos to South Carolina. They came in. I can't even imagine what Shane Beamer told his team all week. They were 4-touchdown underdogs, at Georgia, and you had to use that. And you have Spencer Rattler, who's a really good quarterback. I think he started, Jake, you might know, I think he started 10 for 10 at one point, and made some really big throws and kind of had Georgia reeling, especially on that first scripted series. They kind of picked Georgia apart. And I said this last night, as the game went on, it changed, but I thought Georgia, for the first time in a long time, to me, on defense, they looked slow-footed, but they definitely were a different football team with a little bit different energy and juice in the second half.
Yeah, they did start 10-10. I was impressed with him. I really was. I think he's gotten a lot better. Different quarterback than we saw. I think, that whole I was honestly rolling my eyes a little bit this offseason of all the talk about Dow Loggins and man, Spencer Rattler's just, he's looking great. He's looking awesome. And we saw him look great late last year. So I wasn't really, ready to say why it was going to be the case if he did look good. But I thought, I didn't necessarily, I just thought Georgia was kind of out of it mentally on that first drive a little bit. They wide open guy here, not necessarily a busted coverage, just getting run off a little bit, maybe out there playing a little lackadaisical. And then you get them 3rd and 15, you get some energy in the stadium. They just let the air out of you with a tunnel screen. And, that's one of the reasons why, you fight so hard to keep the opposing team out of your red zone. But you're 100% right, Rusty. Georgia took one on the chin, and they're going to take more than that on the chin.
And one thing, let me interject here right here, Jake, too. You know this on the X and O side. This is the second time that Spencer Rattler has faced Georgia. So he knew all offseason what they did to him, how they played him, and how he could make adjustments. So he made his adjustments. Georgia had to make theirs. But you had to think he made a comment I caught last week, and he said, hey, we like what we're going to try to do to Georgia. So they had a package in place, a lot of quick game stuff they were throwing, but yeah, it's kind of like that baseball motto, facing a pitcher, the second time around, third time around. He had to know how Georgia's going to try to play him, and a little bit different personnel this time, especially with Javon Buller being off the field, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I thought that they got a hold of David Daniel Sisavon a couple of times. I mean, they kind of spun him around a little bit on a deep over route at one point. There was also a deep over route where he got matched on with Xavier Legette, and Javon Bullard's going to lose that one. Any strong safety in the country is going to lose that matchup with that particular wide receiver. We talked on the phone last night, Rusty. You said where the hell did he come from?
Yeah,
and it's boy dog. Absolutely.
Man. In person, I saw him in pregame. I was like, wait a minute, because I was there. Like when South Carolina came out, I was standing right there, and he was one of the first ones that started warming up with Rattler. And I was like, damn, that dude is big. And then you start watching him run fluid routes with some speed. And listen, I know they lost Juice Wells and they've had some injuries over there, but whoever South Carolina plays the rest of the year, that guy is going to be a problem. And I'm not going to lie to you, I started thinking about Sundays. I was like, man, I hope the Falcons get a hold of that guy.
Overall, though, I think what you run into here, and I wrote this in my post-game observations, it's kind of confusing. It really is kind of confusing because as a fan that both teams are in there. The team that struggled in the red zone and gave up 14 in the first half and a 3rd and 15 and some big plays and let South Carolina drive the entire field twice and was only able to muster 3 points out of 2, red zone possessions. That team's in there. But you also know the team that came out and absolutely dominated the second half. I'm talking about came out there, put South Carolina in a sleeper hold, got the bicep up under the chin, flexed it, and just waited till the lights came out. And that was how it went. So, both teams are in there, and it's Kirby Smart's job to make sure that second half team starts to sprawl a little bit and becomes the 3-quarter team, and then the 3.5-quarter team, and then when it's time, the 4th-quarter team.
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag for South Carolina because you saw the team that came off of last season, upset-minded, beating Clemson, beating Tennessee, and they came in with a full head of steam between the hedges and were playing that same kind of ball. But then in the second half, you had the team that gave up 1 million sacks to UNC. So a mixed bag for both teams. The thing that Kirby Smart said that kind of caught my attention coming into the game to the Georgia Bulldogs radio crew was, hey, South Carolina's got a little bit of an advantage because the Gamecocks have played a 4-quarter game. And guys, I still don't think Georgia has played a 4-quarter game. Jake, you referenced this a few days ago. At least when Georgia struggled against Samford and Kent State, you knew that they had that Oregon game in there. Georgia hasn't put that together against the caliber of competition that we've seen it in over last season. So I still don't know what this Georgia team is. I was hoping to learn a thing or two coming out of South Carolina, but both teams are in there. Who are they really going to be when Georgia needs it the most?
I'll say this on that, and that's a great point about not having a 4-quarter game. I talked to a staffer down on the field, not an on-the-field coach, but before the game, a guy that works inside the Butts-Mehre, and I said, what do you think? And he said, hey, we're going to find out about our team today. We're going to find out a lot about our team today. We don't know either. And, you hear Kirby talk about creating identity, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They're still trying to find things. Now, here, let me give you a couple of things here that I dug into tonight. And I don't think people realize what is actually – I know you talk about it, but I don't think you really realize what's going on with this time and the new clock rules. So let me give you Georgia's offensive possessions in the first half. 7 minutes and 54 seconds, they kick a field goal. Punt, they get the next one. 2 minutes, 12 seconds, they punt. Then they go 6 minutes drive back down the field, and they miss a chip shot field goal. Then they get the ball for 46 seconds, and the half is over. So they basically had 3 possessions in the first half. I mean, this clock is flying. Now, let me tell you what happens when you get stops on defense. Georgia had 7 possessions in the second half. And then, oh, by the way, 2 drives that scored touchdowns to start the second half. So getting stops and your possessions not missing field goals, it was crazy yesterday. If we didn't have 4,000 commercials, that game could have been really, really quick. And I was, when you look at it, really 3 possessions is what they had in the first half of an SEC football game. So you look at that and what's going on. I start thinking about how is this going to affect teams, the rest of the season. But I'll tell you this. Standing on the sideline the second half, when they inserted Ra Thomas, and Jake, we talked about it last night, it felt different to me. He immediately gets a 36-yard pass right down the middle of the field. Great throw by Carson Beck. Then they come back with a third, I think it was 3rd and 7.
Yeah.
And he runs that slant route. He beats his guy one-on-one off the line.
And they set that up too, Rusty. They ran quads away from him. They motioned to 4 receivers to the left so they could get him one-on-one and hit the slant. So they were definitely trying to get that ball to Ra Thomas on that slant right there.
And I don't know who put him in. I don't know if Mike Bobo's been trying to put him in. I don't know if Kirby Smart was trying to put – whoever put Ra Thomas into the game, and I mean full-time, tuck that away for the rest of the year, because when Ra Thomas, Dominic Lovett, and when they get Lad McConkey back, that is going to be some matchup issues. And at some point, you got to turn this guy loose. He's a really good player, and they just look different to me. Dejon Edwards was the most important piece of the puzzle that Georgia added yesterday. But remember this right now, Ra Thomas getting inserted into this lineup the second half, down double digits. And what he showed me he could do, that is one of those notes you remember for the rest of the year. Let's see where this thing goes with it.
Dejon was the story of the game for me. Georgia showing some heart in being able to come back and following Kirby Smart's advice to just take it one play at a time. I know it's a cliche, but that's what Georgia had to do, and it helped them get the win. And the missed field goals. Those were the 3 stories for me yesterday. And there were a lot of them in there. The Amarius Mims injury was a big one. I'm curious, Ro, what did you notice other than Ra? What was the switch flipping moment that helped Georgia turn it around in the second half for you?
I mean, it's just I think it was halftime, honestly, because, Kirby's saying after the game, and I don't always put a ton of stock into what Kirby says because I know it's messaging and I know it's head coach and I know it's coach speak. But I really do think, from talking to people that were at that second scrimmage, Kirby said this is the best leadership team he's had. It's the best connected team he had. And I think they got in there at halftime. I think they started to look each other in the eyeballs and say, all right, guys, we're down 11 points, and we've been here before. We're trailing Ohio State, and with everything on the line going into the fourth quarter, you trail Missouri going into the fourth quarter. Been here before, no panic. That crowd out there is on our side. Let's go get them back in it and win this ball game. And I think that was the turning point. But I'll say my biggest takeaway was how many different players helped Georgia win that ball game yesterday.
Yep.
That was because Rusty mentions rah-rah. You got Dominic Lovett. You got Brock Bowers doing ridiculous stuff. You got Dejan Edwards. Kendall Milton's taking friendly fire over here in the comments, and that's fine. I get it. Everybody's going to have an opinion. Let me tell you something. Right after rah-rah caught that 36-yard pass, Kendall Milton hurdled a dude, ran over a dude, and broke 3-4 more tackles to pick up 15 yards, and the place went bananas.
Yeah,
Georgia scored 2 plays later, and I'm not saying, oh, well, we need to give him the Heisman for one 15-yard run, but, that's part of it. Nazir Stackhouse with a sack, Darius Smith with a huge pressure late in that game.
19.
Yeah.
19. He's got to play. I mean,
he
I don't know.
Different, man. He looks different.
He doesn't have to start, okay? But I don't care if 19's on the field, Georgia's a better football team.
Agreed.
I mean, that guy can go get it. And listen, we're not going to compare a lot of other things, but I'm going to tell you something. When you look at 19 and you look at the length, he looks just like Adam Anderson and the way Georgia used him on the field and what he did. And
I think he's already a little heavier, to be honest, if you want to get technical with it.
The first time they put him in, I watched him come in. The first time they put him in on a third down, he got a pressure right off the bat. And that guy, man, he's just different. And, maybe he doesn't hold up against the run quite yet. And I understand that. I understand that logic to it. But they got to find ways to just, you guys remember when Leonard Floyd was there, he was just too small at first, but he was so fast. They just brought him in and said, look, turn him loose. And, the Georgia's got to find a way to get 19 more involved. And I guarantee you, when they see that tape, they sit down and look at stuff and who they're going to face down the line, Darius Smith is going to be a guy that's going to be an important piece of the puzzle for Georgia.
No doubt.